Faster. Okay. Madam Director. 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll dispense with reading of the Pledge of Allegiance unless someone objects. And can we move to approval of the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, sir. A second?
Second.
Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda is approved. We are on old business. Public Works, where are we at?
I'm gonna get here for the paperwork.
That's,
Yeah, well, I'm taking notes and doing this at the same time. It's gonna be a struggle, so bear with me, everybody. Okay, the easy part that I'm gonna give you guys an update on is I provided the progress meeting minutes, the field report, and an updated construction schedule from the last construction meeting held, will be 2 weeks this Friday. Did anybody, I gave that to you guys last Friday, did anybody review it, have any questions, concerns, anything like that? I'm not gonna go over the details of that, unless there is. What I want to dive in tonight is the funding and where we needed to be and where we are right now. Because I haven't been able to provide that to you guys, so I have a couple of spreadsheets that I've provided. I have also sent you all the pay requests 1, 2, and 3 that have been approved by USDA and have been paid, either paid prior to the construction starting, like all our architecture fees, or have been paid to TNT.
and for the USDA to make a payment, there criteria that has to be met.
There is criteria. So I'm gonna preface this by saying every project that I have been involved in is a new experience, and USDA is a new experience for me. So I've been on a little bit of a learning pattern the last couple of weeks. What USD requires is, let me backtrack here. Every time there's a project, and WIDSEF is our architects and engineers, any pay request coming from a contractor goes directly to WIDSEF for review first. Okay, they review what's been done, what the contractor is submitting has been done, double checks it before they authorize it. They sign off on it. So this one is actually signed by 4 parties. When the liquor store was done, it was signed by 3. Okay, the contractor, WIDSEF, and now USDA, and now the city. Okay, so once WIDSEF has reviewed what has been done on that pay request, then it goes to Angela Huckabee from USDA to also review and approve. And then she submits the request to the city for payment. Now, what is different on this project versus, I'm gonna use the liquor store because it's the most recent and I have the most amount of people here that have been involved in that. When the city received its funding for the liquor store project and we bonded for it, we utilized the majority of that funding right off the bat to start on the project and to pay Russ Anderson. Any city contribution or cash contribution that came out of the liquor fund at that point that was extra were things like the closing costs for that bond. Additional things that we paid for that we agreed to, like all the kitchen equipment, things like that, okay? But we were able to use the interim financing or the financing from Ellers first, and then the rest of our cash second. We're upside down on that. USDA requires the municipal contribution to be spent first before we were able to touch any of the interim financing that was approved on June 23rd. So pay request 3 was finally able to dip into that funding, but what I had to do prior to was twofold. I had to prove all the funding that we've already paid. So we met that threshold of what was in our closing note from USDA. That amount was $316,600. It was a percentage of what that total project was supposed to be funded by USDA. Okay, regardless of what the interim payments are. Anybody follow me so far? Haven't lost anybody too much? Okay, good. So I sent Angela all of the invoices from WITSEF to prove we've spent $169,000. I subsequently sent her the invoices paid to Ron Intertech for all the boring for this project as well. I sent her the legal notice bills from Fargo Forum that had to be noticed in order to do the project. And I'm also sending her legal bills from our attorney as well, to try to tick down that 316, 627 so that we can use it. And all of this is partially authorized based on what that preliminary architect's report, the PAR, was stated what city contribution was going to be. And the other part of it is that percentage that USDA says we have to spend. Okay. So what I provided for you guys tonight, this afternoon, was this little quick spreadsheet at a glance. Do I need to put it up on the screen, or can you guys follow along with me?
I've got you.
Okay.
Everybody else?
I tried to summarize it the best I could after speaking with Angela so that it kind of made sense. So underneath the header of the summary, I have total project funds. That $2,281,627 is a combination of the total project plus the city's contribution. Okay. Regardless of what that interim financing dollar amount column provides, that's how much funds have been authorized and are going forward to pay for this project. Okay. Now below that, you'll see my pay requests that have already been submitted to Angela for authorization, and that she's approved as well. And slowly all of that stuff has been able to be ticking away. This past pay request we received a week and a half ago has been paid. 78,000 of that 295 was city contribution. Okay. What I've done for you guys tonight in those pay request scans is also include where the funding has come from. So for those of you that are involved in this project since day one, you understand that there's a percentage of the project that's being covered under the general fund financing or funds, excuse me, and the rest of it's being covered under utility. So there's a percentage share. I've split up everything that we've done from day one on a 60-40 split. So that's 61,750 out of pay request 1, and the 78,144 out of pay request 2 is split the same way.
Okay.
So what you need to know as the board is 40% of those 2 pay requests are coming out of the general fund. Okay. LGA is now in our coffers, and our first settlement of city sales tax is also in our general fund budget. But that doesn't, I get worried about money all the time around this point of the year because I'm waiting for the funds to come in. So that puts us in a situation right now where we can actually start spending the interim financing, and Angela is aware of that. The difference in this project, because USDA is involved, is because we were approved for 1.9655 total from USDA, is that although our interim financing is less what our closing costs were, that $53,000 for closing costs is actually getting covered under our financing for USDA. If I compare that to what we did for the liquor store, that closing cost came out of the liquor store's cash contribution, okay? It's my understanding, speaking with Angela, is that we won't have to actually physically pay that 53,000, but it is gonna be part of our financing when USDA covers that interim financing loan and closes on it. So we will pay for it over the 30-year term, but we don't have to pay for it up front. So that gives me a little pause, a little bit more feeling better, because it's a lot of money that we've put out in order to get us to this point. And, you know, poo-poo on me because I didn't understand we had USDA was gonna require us to do this going into it. But we're finally at a point where the money's coming out of the interim financing, so that's good. Any questions to this point? John?
How would the city sit now with paying all that right at the point?
That's the one thing I didn't have the time to put on paper to pen, but I may have it. Just give me 1 second, because I thought I pulled the cash balance report after I paid the last payment. 20. It's today, the 4th. 25th. Can't recall if this is prior to or after. I think this is prior to. When the LGA came in, it was, I gave that to you guys in the July council meeting. So the current balance on the 20th in the general fund was $285,558. That included the first half settlement of the property taxes and the LGA to that point. I believe, if memory serves me, the pay request that was number 3, that 78,000, 40% of it came out of there. Sorry, Don, if I wasn't completely prepared to give you that.
No, that's fine.
But I do have, okay, I made that payment on the 20th.
I just kind of missed a few meetings. I was just kind of.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the amount that came out of the 101, the general fund, was about $31,000. The rest of it came, about 46,000 came out of 601 and 602 equally split, and then the rest of it, 217,000 came out of the interim financing. So when I provide to you guys your fund balance report on the 8th, pay request 3 will have already been spent. Okay. The other thing I wanted to make sure you guys understood was, up until now, what I've been providing to you guys is like a spreadsheet like this that kind of told you, based on the PAR, what our responsibility was, you know, if it was extra or everything like that. And one of the things that I've gained some knowledge on in this process is things like the bid from Paulvin Cooperative for that $11,000 for all the low voltage data. That's actually included in the total project costs. So it's not something extra we're going to be paying in the long run, which at the beginning I thought it was. Okay, especially now that we've already spent some amount of money and now we're taking it out of the interim financing. 2 things that came up that gave Angela a little caution is when we closed on the interim financing June 23rd, that closing cost was a lot higher than what was originally estimated by Ellers. And that was for a couple of different reasons. First of all, we took out another $300,000 of bonding than what was originally estimated. So there was additional costs associated with doing that schedule. And the S&P global rating was a lot higher than what I think Todd had anticipated. Because when we went into this, we thought we'd be putting with like $32,000 with bond council closing costs, and it ended up $50,000. Even Angela's like, whoa, what the heck? So
That's what they were talking about in the last, one of those, excuse me, one of those Ellers reports.
yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it's spelled out in
Yep.
there. And it was a little worrisome for Angela because, you know, she's got to keep track of everything else. I don't think I sent this to you guys. but this is her spreadsheet where she has to fill all of her columns into. Even the contingency, we already approved one of the change orders. The contingency is starting to be spent too, but the contingency is now higher because the project cost is higher. It's like $92,000. So hopefully we won't have any further changes on the project. The last thing I needed to make sure you guys knew was in the PAR, there was language in there. Make sure I say it right. Under the cost estimate, under site work, that stated existing building demolition, the old building out there, grading and class 5 paving shall be by owner. Okay, this was the document that Steve Rose provided to USDA so that Angela could provide to her people how much this building was going to cost and all the nuts and bolts that were made up in this. This number, although provided by owner, for the statement didn't have a number attached to it. So she really had no place for the cost of all the class 5 that went in that ground last month to play into this. So that's about $35,000 that we paid equally as well in June to make sure that that foundation and everything around it could be solid. This is above and beyond the change order done.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the reason for that is because when we did the planning for the building, we agreed in our planning meeting that we would be able to do the finishing around the project, around the building. We knew we could handle it. Mike was under the interpretation that it would happen after and not at the beginning of the project. And I had it in my mind going, yep, if it's February, March, or April of 23, or whatever we get to that point, we'll be fine. But there was no cost listed in this. And Angela can't account for it in the city contribution. So I can't put that $35,000 anywhere in there for us stating that we spent it. So it's kind of out the window.
Was that for all the extra before we had a whole into the fog?
No,
This is on top of that?
yeah, this
would be the finished gravel that went around the outside.
thank you.
So it's already paid for and in there. There's no.
There's nowhere in the PAR that stated we were gonna do this and this is how much it was gonna cost. And Angela had a little caution about that, but we paid it. I paid it equally, just the way I just explained everything else was. I anticipated it would be something that would be a city contribution out of 316, but because it's not listed in there and USDA has to keep track of it, and they didn't have a number to start with in this report, she can't list it anywhere.
Is this the one with bossing in the middle of it?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
I read all of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like the pay request 2 that I sent you today, it would look like that. It would say, we've already spent this, just like the WIDSEF invoices, and she'll slowly take it away from that total. And I really anticipated that happening. And we kind of argued about it because at first she told me, well, there's nowhere in here saying that it's a city contribution, so I really can't put it in. She went on vacation a week and a half ago and at like 4:30, and I missed her by a half an hour. I found it. I found the language in there. And I was talking with Brent Damon from WIDSEF, and I'm like, wait a second now. We should be able to take this out of that 316. I even called one of her partners in the cities to say, what kind of clarification can you give me on that if it's listed on here? And the problem is this, USDA has only approved us for this dollar amount. There's no more that they're giving us. So if we take that 35 grand and add it, something else is gonna give. We're gonna end up paying for it anyway. So that's all the bad news I have for you guys. I've spent a ton of money in the last 2 months. It's given me a couple of ulcers, but we're going forward. I noticed the tie back on the outside of the building today. The roof is on. We have another construction meeting this Thursday. As far as I can see, we haven't had any other hiccups for change orders, which is good.
Are you still meeting here?
We are, so please come, 10:30. Thursday. Every other Thursday.
Back on track now.
Back on track, yeah. Cross fingers, cross toes, yeah. So it is what it is, and I hate using that term because, you know, we're at a point where we keep telling ourselves we can't go backwards. You know, but I don't know, I'm not sure what else to tell you guys. I'm trying, my role is to try to keep the finances straight.
Yep.
And TNT and Woodseth's role is to make sure that what we asked for is what we're gonna get for the price that we asked for. Questions?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So every time you turn in a pay request to Winston,
Yes,
is that included already in their bill?
yes. We're not getting billed from Woodseth anymore.
That's what I was thinking.
Yep. The only thing that we have not provided to Woodseth for a payment on, Dawn, is the mirroring. We agreed to it in November, but they have not invoiced us for it. And I followed up with Brent on that as well. So Angela's kind of keeping that amount because she knows how much it is. She's got that contract that we signed last winter in her list of things that she has to take away. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Other questions? No? I know that you guys a lot of information. I apologize. But it's probably too much here for you to look at, but like I told Angela, I said I need to just do a summary so I can make it simple.
No, I read through it.
Okay. All right.
It's just nice to hear somebody
Yep.
explain it more in depth.
I'm trying,
It's
yeah.
nice to have it on the record.
And that's what I told Angela. That's what I told Angela. I said, it's one thing to see it, it's another thing to explain it. And I don't want to say it in a nutshell, but just to show you guys the truth of what's happening so that it is on the record and plain as day without all of that information. Okay.
Rescue plan?
Yes, so we did receive our second half of our ARP funding on, it says June 30th. I think I had it in the council's consent agenda.
We moved it already.
No, we have not. I'm going to put that in your August meeting.
Okay.
Okay. It's kind of goofy because there's a bunch of moving back and forth between one fund and the other fund, but I just want to stick in the reserve so I know it's there. And then it's easy for me to translate to the auditor when they ask to. I mean, it might be a couple other back and forths, but that way it's easier. The Stump Jumpers project, Max, I submitted the final pay app for reimbursement last week. You'll see the pictures, the letter, the emails, or excuse me, the invoices that were paid at the July regular council meeting, and then the volunteer hours. So we are set to receive the remaining of the grant of $4,434. I imagine that'll come probably not until August when Stan Goldner, he's the grant specialist for the state, reviews everything. There was a final invoice that came from Juleson's to pay for the use of Juleson Plumbing and Heating's skid steer to do some of the work. So that'll be paid out of the reserve account at the August meeting. So I'll have that in the bill batch. And that was $200, but that's going to be reimbursed. I have to include the invoice so that I could submit for the reimbursement, even though I haven't been paid yet. Dan Goldner knew it because I have to show payment, but I figured I'd submit everything. He emailed me back when he got the submission and said, hey, I see you don't have a check here. I said, yeah, it's gonna be paid on the 8th. He said, okay, so he's gonna still submit this as final. And in my conversations with Max Burmeister, they're well aware that there's still some detailing and some finishing to do to the parking lot, but all of their volunteers have been very busy this spring. So he knows there's some cosmetic stuff that they want to still finish. And then the lease agreement will also have to be continued to work on. I'm going to probably have a meeting with Max because their plan was to update and put money of their own and materials into that existing building down there so that they could use it. And as it sits right now, it's not safe enough to use.
I thought they went in there without electrical.
It did. The problem with that, Dawn, is that the way I presented it to our city attorney as is prior to that, and our rental inspector looked at it, he's like, yeah, no, this place is not safe for habitat. You can't really use this. So the attorney knows that it's not something we want to have any liability on, but the stump jumpers are, I mean, they're contractors and they know how to fix things, and they're going to put their own time and energy and money and materials into doing that. So that's the reason I've been holding off on that lease agreement, is because the stump jumpers want to update it so that we can include that in the lease agreement so that they can continue using it.
So as it sits right now, it's just in the city's possession.
That is correct. It will remain in the city's position for 20 years. Yeah. The lease agreement just gives them access to it.
What is, they have an intent, do you know, of what they're gonna do with what they scraped off of the?
Oh, the other earth. Max told me last time I spoke with him. They're either gonna haul it away or they're gonna use it for, in the back of the building, they're storing the grader. And they might put it back there and flatten it out.
Okay. Details
wise, I probably couldn't speak to it.
Yeah, that's probably one of the cosmetic things he was speaking of.
It is, it is, and he's well aware. I mean, one of the problems is that the first time they laid the crushed granite down, it was still very, very wet out there. And it sat there for a good month. And I'm like, dude, we got June 30th. We need to have this finished, or at least finished as much as I can so I can close the grant out. And I spoke with Dan Gilmer about that. I said, I'm going to send you some pictures. They're not exactly finished. I said, but this is where we're at. I said, we've received an enormous amount of rain this spring and we can't finish by June 30th. Is that going to be okay? He said, as long as the city understands and the stump jumpers understand where it's going to be finished off, he said that's fine. So I provided them as is to that point.
All right.
Good?
We're not on the hook for none of that money.
No. Yep. But what's going to happen is that when that grant money comes back for that last submission, that'll reimburse us. We had to provide to the state the number of man hours, and that was part of the threshold we had to provide to them as proof of use and in kind in order to get all of our grants.
Okay.
Yeah, because they only, it's a 75-25% match. So we had to state how much everything was, including materials and labor, in order to hit that threshold to get our 75 back. Okay, that moves me down to the next project. Hang on, I want my water.
We're downtown, right?
We're on downtown yet. Here. So, as most of you have seen, Dobmeyer has started his work. It's gone fairly smoothly. He is leaving the front facade of the 3 buildings up to keep the looky-loos out and the nosy people out so that he can actually keep working. And it's kind of a safety issue. Sorry. He's got 32 down and he's got 40 down. And they're at street level right now. He still has to go down lower level yet, but he's waiting to get all of the main levels down first before he goes all the way underneath. He's got a system, he knows what he's doing. I've been talking to him at least 2 or 3 times a week. Jim Krabenhoff, JD Construction, has been called in twice now. The first incident I needed Jim to help with is Anderson Fabrics outlet has a door, a full-on door, just like that front one, to 32 Main. And when 32 Main came down, you could fully see it. It actually says restaurant access on the door in stenciled letters. Kind of funny, but Carl was concerned because that section of Anderson Fabrics, the roof is slanted. All of the water damage to 32 and 40 Main basically came from Anderson Fabrics runoff, because there's no gutters up on that back side of their building. So to avoid any issues, hopefully we don't have too much more rain after tomorrow. JD came in, put some tie back up underneath the flashing, put some boarding and sealed it up with some foam because there was an actual step into Anderson Fabrics, just to avoid any possible rain issues. However, last Friday night when it rained, what you need to understand is that 32 Main has a main foundation, and then it had a little bit of a basement in the backside, a stairway, a little access, which those 2 sections of that access to the lower level is right up against Anderson Fabrics. So when it rained on Friday night, that went down next to their foundation and seeped into the lower level of their building. It was mostly silt and some rainwater. It's clean. I've spoken to Anderson's, I'm talking to Claire Cupcho, and JD's going to do some work with Carl to avoid any more runoff until Carl can actually come in and do the rest of the lower level work. Hopefully we won't have any chimney problems. I have a meeting with Annette on Wednesday for some other options, and I've already kind of strongly suggested that they consider putting gutters on the back of that building, or to find another way to direct the rainwater, because it's going to happen anyway. The project did not include any of our financing into fixing that issue that they have. It's always been that way. That's not part of the redevelopment construction. What is included is the lower level gets weatherproof. But right now, until we get to the lower level and get that out and we can do that, we have to have some directional for the rain. Carl is now working on the Barber Shop adjacent to the theater. He has the apartment section from the alley in pretty much gone, and he has part of the theater's rear addition exposed. That is part of the project for JD to fix that wall and add. When I went back there to talk to them this afternoon about the rainwater issue, I took pictures. I talked to Shannon Camper. That building, like I stated before, was built right up against Gunderson's property. That picture specifically shows how the wall of Gunderson's was the wall of the theater. So what's exposed right now is 2x4 construction and insulation batting. Carl's going to be putting a tarp and weatherproofing that just to prepare for any rain. And I talked to Shannon and I told her where we're at right now. It sounds like Carl can pretty much see the original theater wall just about right now, and there is a gap here. So the original theater And Gunderson's, there was a gap. They don't share a wall, but the new addition on the front and the new addition on the back shares the wall. So once we get to the old section, it's not gonna be that bad.
So Christine, you had mentioned that part of the problem with the water damage to these parcels was caused by Anderson's not having a gutter system put on the back.
Probably, yeah.
Now, is that something that we would need to worry about for new people, builders coming in, that is secured so that doesn't happen again?
You know, my envision of what's gonna happen in that space, Lori, is that when someone decides to build, there will be a decent amount of setback between the buildings on the side. And there will have to be some water control from everywhere. The nice thing is that City Hall's water direction comes out the west side of the building onto the sidewalk. I don't think there was ever anything done on that building.
No, I think it was.
Yeah,
Do we know what that square footage would be if you were gonna sell that parcel to someone?
that's my next step to talk to you guys about.
Okay.
It's
That's
coming
coming
up.
That's coming. That's a good segue. So I'm at the stage right now of working towards combining those three parcels. Up until Thursday of last week, I was hoping Anderson Fabrics would say, yeah, you can have another parcel if you want, but they don't. So I give you guys this aerial, it shows all of them. Okay, if you look where 40 Main is, 'cause it's kind of a piece of property that looks like my finger pointing this way, right? Okay, but there's another parcel there, 8100 12100. That's just over the dirt. Anderson owns that. So my economic development says that would be an excellent addition to these three parcels to sell to a new person that's gonna develop it, because that would make like 33 feet in the back instead of only, well, excuse me, we give you 50 feet in the back instead of like 33. Because these are 25-foot parcels on the front, 150 back. So Gunderson's 48 Main is the only one that's a full, that was using up almost the entire space. The rest of them were not. It's hard to say, the full square footage, I don't have that area number in my head, Lori, but you can kind of guesstimate by the size of each lot how big that would be. 75 by 150 is what? Somebody else do the math. Then take out that chunk, but they're not square or rectangle,
Right.
you know,
Are they still gonna move that white building?
no, because it's on their lot. They don't have to. They don't have to. Annette Rudnicki declined the sale or the change of hands of 121 because Anderson's is concerned they won't have access to the rear building if they sell that. So be it. Whoever buys this property from the city, those three parcels, once we've got them combined, can approach them as well. It's valued at $1,100, I think I saw on the county's website.
So
Not even that.
just out of curiosity,
Yeah, 1,100.
well, I know it is where the bakery used to be.
That empty space where they use for the parking lot?
Yes.
Yes, I actually know that.
Yeah, I'm dating myself a little bit, but is that now part of that's not part of 30?
It is. They own it.
Okay.
Anderson's owns that too. It was on tax forfeiture for a long time.
Time.
Yep.
All right.
I think it flipped into their ownership shortly after I started with the city, like in 2000. So they own from us down to the alley. So the reason I'm bringing this documentation to you today is I provided this information to the planning commission last Wednesday. Told them my hope for acquiring 121, told them that we needed to provide a public hearing to consider combining the parcels in order to move forward with it. And they agreed to set a public hearing date of August 22nd. And that would normally be your work session. So what I would plan for the council that would give me enough time to notify the adjoining landowners around it within 350 feet, which is required by ordinance. And finally hold that meeting and see if there's any questions about it. Then I can have the parcel combined and then send that to the county for recording. That will make it easier to sell as one number instead of three.
That's extremely.
So combined, they're only worth $1,100.
No, 121, the one that Anderson's owns is only $1,100.
Oh.
That's why I thought,
This little.
why not see if they'll let it go?
this little.
Yeah.
That's only what. It's just. The combine what they're doing. Make this one parcel.
Yeah.
It was always my plan to request that combination. It's just recently I was like, shoot, why didn't I think of this? And I asked a couple of people that are in economic development about it, and they're like, yeah, you'd be stupid not to. So I at least tried, but they don't want to let it go. I think them keeping it is not wise either, but that's not my case. I do agree with you, Ron. I don't know what they use that building for.
You can see the cracks where they move parts.
Yeah.
There'd be plenty of room.
Even with the relocation of their propane tank, when it comes back in, when the project is done, they'll still, because the co-op's gonna want to put it within 10 feet of any building before it was literally right up against 32 million. So it'll keep it warm. So I think Anderson's knows what they have to do in order to bring that propane tank back and get it fired
Yep.
correctly. So my reason for bringing this to you today is just to let you guys know that I'm moving forward with that public hearing on August 22nd. My hope is that letter E will be combined with that, is that you will do a public hearing to hear any questions and then approve the combination. And then have maybe a special meeting because the legislature will go back in and approve funding, and then we can move forward with our city sales tax, because that's where we're sitting with that too.
Kind of a La La Land thing? or-
Well, I can hope, Max, right?
Okay,
August 26th is our deadline for having a resolution approved by the city council to provide the voters the appropriate time to have that item on the ballot in November. If the state comes back into special session and they pass their funding bill and all the local sales tax referendums that were stuck in there gets approved too, then I can provide the city council the resolution to approve that night, and then we can get it on the ballot. Doesn't give us a whole lot of time to discuss it with the city voters, but we'll just have to beat feet this fall. And they are?
Yep.
Did you hear something today?
Yes, Arnie Carlson was talking about it. That he's thinking about calling. There's a couple things that need to get passed before midterm.
You said Arnie Carlson.
Or not, I'm sorry, way back way up.
Yeah, I was like, is he still alive?
No.
I didn't think so.
Well, excuse me.
Okay. Well, it's about dang time.
They're getting pressure from a lot of different areas.
There is.
There is.
Good.
And there's a lot of money sitting on the table there that they haven't
Get
spent.
back to work. Good
Yes,
job.
yes. My guess is they're gonna wait till the primary is done, and then they're gonna go back in, and they're gonna do it in a day, and I bet you it takes them an hour.
He said about an hour.
Can't tell you how frustrating that is. This is not the first special session that our city funding has been tied up in when we did our Main Street and Summit project, our PFA funding was tied up in that, and they excused themselves too. Yeah. It's okay, I know what you meant. That's awesome.
Yeah, blame it on the meds.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's
we got the
funny.
drug and alcohol policy coming up.
Yeah, that's later. That's later.
I'm good.
So I'm at letter F now.
Yep.
I think I got everything in my line here.
Is that,
So, yeah, this is the letter that was drafted by the city attorney. This is a letter of interest to purchase with the contingencies listed. I stated to Joe Langle what we discussed, and he put it into language, and I want the head nod to send it to Brent Penzel. Anybody see any language in here they would rather see differently?
When are we going to inspect the bank property?
Let's get them to authorize this first and enter into a purchase agreement.
We want to look that over.
Yes,
Particularly the heat pump on the roof. The
that-
last thing is that it's.
and that's why I had him put it in there. That's why I had him put it in there, because I knew that was one of Don's concerns too, was the HVAC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they have been mothballing, really, they haven't. It's not-
That's right up your alley.
Yeah. But there is something.
I thought this stuff was.
Yeah, we need to get.
Yeah, that is,
Mhm.
I think that's listed on the second page, satisfactory inspection of the
Yeah, I see it.
property. Yep. I'm not trying to, insult anyone on that, but I thought, just like you did, and what Don has asked for is that the building's been sitting for a while.
Yeah.
And Mike hasn't had the time to get in there either, so we need to have somebody properly do it, and it could be as easy as me calling a rental inspector.
Well,
This is-
I think we need to bring in actually a heating contractor or somebody that does
Oh,
commercial
yeah.
work to check all that out, because Mike's good at things.
Yeah, but it's not as precise, and he knows that.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Compressors.
Um,
I look at those quotes almost every day,
Okay,
nothing for that big. So that just the one compressor is out. So, so you and I should go over there.
I was in construction all my life, and I'll tell you, there's certain things people need to look for.
so what this is very preliminary.
it is, I mean, we have to start somewhere, I mean, if Deerwood looks at this and they're like, then it's kind of off the table, I mean, there's a lot of contingencies here, the biggest one is we have to sell the other building.
It's huge.
I did confirm, excuse me, with Kichigami, Melissa, right? That it's just a board approval of the capital funds. So the way she and I discussed it is if we enter into a purchase agreement after this with Deerwood, they'll release the funds. So that'll get us halfway.
Will there be a public hearing on it? Do we need to do that?
No?
No, there wasn't anything in there that was a public hearing about,
Mhm.
because those are funds going back into. If anything, could have taken a poll about it, but, but then when you get. This project was already slated at some point to do something with their current library.
It's just when and what. So we have to kick this down the road and
You
find
gotta
out what's
kick the
next
can,
first.
see.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I have had conversations with Miriam and Kelly both. They're well aware of where I'm at right now with this process. They're also well aware of that it's not a quick one too. But I don't want to insult Deerwood either, so.
I don't want to insult anyone, and I don't want anyone thinking that we're rushing it.
Oh, heck no. I mean, it could take us it could take us 12, 13, 14 months to sell the
We need to
building.
know, yeah, even if that price is gonna work, we've heard about that price will work, or if this will work.
Yeah.
But I think this is, it's clean enough, and it's,
It expresses an interest to Deerwood that we
right,
Yes.
this is what
we
we're,
might be interested, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I'm okay with that.
Okay. Then I'll send it, I'll sign it and I'll send it off to Grant and I'll see what sticks and report back to you guys.
There's some parts of the project I'm gung ho for and I love the ideas, and there's other parts that I go, oh,
I know.
I just,
I don't know if my email got sent to you guys, but I
Yes.
watched CBS Sunday Morning and they had a wonderful video on all these new libraries that are reinventing themselves across the nation. Okay, great.
Yeah.
It was very inspiring.
I sent it to the library board.
oh.
It was
yeah,
very
I got
inspiring.
jacked up, I was like.
Everybody got
oh.
energized after that. I'm like, oh, that would be awesome.
It was
Yeah, and then
very
you hear him
cool.
say, they spent $32 million.
Woo. But one of the things that kept echoing is that it's a community area. And if you look at what they're doing in some of those larger cities, in those big facilities, it's things that no one's ever thought of before.
Sewing class.
Music,
Yeah.
there was a little cafe there in that last video.
There was their computer tech room that had 3D printers in them. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of grant funding that provided for those facilities, and that's probably like way high in the sky for us, but just think, you can't limit yourself as to what we could potentially be doing.
But we need the technology for these little people,
You're right,
you know, I mean, we gotta look into the future, so.
you're right.
And we don't know what
And
that
that
is.
could, yeah, and that could be like, I guess we do it a little bit, we got a grant in, you know, for employment services where anybody wanted one, they could check out a little tablet.
That
And
was
it had
part of that
learning-
video.
Different learning, for job seeking, you know, how to, you know, do an interview and practice these things, and I was just like,
Yeah,
there's lots of things that can be done.
it just energizes me when we can start thinking about what we can be, you know, even though we're small, and what we can provide. And it gives me a lot of pride knowing that we're thinking about that even though we're small. So,
Because times are changing.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that's your head on.
okay, I will send
I
it to
have one
Grant.
question, I have one question.
Yes,
on
please.
this. So you put in there the contingency to sell like existing library.
Correct.
I mean, that building needs a lot of work. I mean, in all reality, that might be a stickler by buying this new library.
It very well could.
And the city owns that.
Yes, sir. You very well could. Matt's Barbie's, you know, response of $50,000, you know, is realistic, but in my experience, when the public starts hearing that the city's gonna sell something, they're the ones that end up getting, we're the ones that getting lowballed.
Of course, and eyeballs when they work.
Right? Which is so backwards when it's public funding, right? This doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, that's why I stated that before. I'm like, yeah, it could be sitting there for a while.
Did we build that? Was it custom built or?
That was when the lumberyard was downtown.
Mhm.
I believe, Daryl Lindbergh's dad had that as their office facility before they built out there.
Oh, really?
Yes. No? What was it
No.
before then?
I think Miriam said that
This is the yard.
it was part of the yard, that was built for them to move out of where the post office is now, because they got their money,
Mistake.
they done all this fundraising and they worked for the post office.
They
The
were in
post
the-
office wanted to come in and they moved them, built that.
Oh, that's where the bad blood comes from, Lori?
Yes,
I see.
Post office built that though?
no,
No.
the city did.
Oh.
That's what
And
I
then the
thought.
post office came in
They were
and
in
took
the
it over
old,
instead of the
auto
library. They must have gotten more money out of it.
I'm not sure how much changed hands right there.
Yeah, you know,
But yeah, that's where that bad blood comes from.
well, let's cure that, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's cure that.
So, because they had raised the money for that bill themselves.
Got it. Yeah, transparency has been a question in this town since I started, and that's one of the things I always try to do is like, okay, let's learn the real story. Because there's a lot of them.
All right,
All right.
moving on.
I feel like I'm missing something.
Hello, and welcome back to the Christina Show.
Hello, welcome back to Christina Show. Library, I can stay down there. So the DMV has kind of taken a little bit of a turn. Max, I believe I included you in an
Yes.
email I sent
Yeah.
last Friday. I sent an email to Brandon Welters, who in the DMV, the state DMV hierarchy is the person that should be approving our requests. He is an interim person. I think he's only been in the position for maybe 2 years. And the new person that is above him is, I'm gonna get his name right, Hong Yang. He started in September of last year of 2021. So I decided to send an email to both Brandon and Pong last Friday. I'm not going to lie to you. I think it was a little below the belt to do what I did, but I needed to shake some stuff up. I basically recapped what has happened so far. I told them how disappointed I was with the response, that the people I had been working with had never called me back, and basically said, I'd really like a phone call. And less than an hour and a half later, I received a phone call from Tom. He apologized profusely, apologized for his staff, told me that this was the first time he had even received or reviewed or even had our application. But that doesn't excuse anybody underneath him. And prior to calling me, said that he contacted the commissioner, the public safety commissioner, and set up a scheduled meeting with him to review this application this week.
Nice.
And he would have some type of update for me this week. He also provided me some authority oversight, insight to the department. Previous to maybe 2018 or 2019, DVS, their department and his role had the authorization to approve these requests. It got very political at some point, and our head commissioner of Department of Public Safety took it over. He's the only one that can authorize it with recommendation from DVS. And it could be one of the reasons why we haven't heard anything, because it's never made it to him. For whatever reason it is. So he's taken some ownership on this. I kind of explained to him what I know so far and what I think has happened and kept it taking over this long, and then I'm just not gonna let go until I at least get a no. And he promised me he'd let me know this week what's going to happen. He even gave me his personal cell phone number. So sometimes you just gotta find the right person. But I hope,
Nice work.
I hope to, yeah, I know, but let's see how many more people I can tip off. So,
Big number.
hopefully that doesn't happen to the wrong person. I just, I just told him, I said, I've got county approval, And if I didn't have county approval, I probably wouldn't let it go, or I probably would let it go, but I was at my, election training on Thursday night and stayed after to speak with Jody Treat, and she's like, I know, she sent a support letter to Brandon Walters, and she never heard anything from him either.
Is he working there?
That's a very good question. I guess I'll find out here very soon.
No, I mean, are all these people still working at home, or are they working, or, I mean, that's
You know, that is also a very good question. I think it's probably a mix of both, but I don't know if I provided to you guys. I didn't. The department grid, you know, the support grid of who works under whom. But when you pull it up right now and look at it, I'd say 2/3 of the staff are all empty. No one's working there. And 3 of the big people, 2 of the 3 big people under Pong, I'll say interim underneath their title. So they probably haven't been in the job that long either, Don, to really say, hey, you know, I'll do this for you.
Makes a lot of sense.
You know, yeah, to me, it makes a lot of sense. They're probably all still learning the job.
So what they can do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And at this point, they probably can't if that everything needs to go to the head of DPS. So hopefully we'll know something before I start on a budget for 2020. That's coming up. Let's see, moving down the agenda, I have no updates for you on the cemetery vault, letter H. I have no further updates on I at this point. I know that their performance stage group is working on fundraising. J, that's the next one I want to provide an update on, and that's the city annexation. I talked to Joe Langle last week, and after his vacation, touched base with me. So I believe I told you guys where I was at the last work session. I had to send all of the city deeds to the state so that they could review them all. He has the draft of the resolution done. He just has to review the cemetery and the ponds left to make sure that they're clean before he can send it to the OAH for review of the properties. So maybe we'll see a draft of the resolution in August, it might be September. Repeat, sorry. I meant for it.
But just to be clear, they don't mean that the ponds have to be clean.
No.
It has to do with the land. Okay.
Land. Yeah.
We're gonna clear that up.
Letter K is the FEMA flooding event from April. I received word from Chris Muller today that the county was declared by FEMA for a major disaster. Eligible work will be reimbursed 100%, 75 from FEMA, 25 from the state. Applicant briefings have not been scheduled yet. And what else did he say? There's 3 major federal disaster declarations, a few state declarations. So the group is a little behind. That does not mean that we can't start cleaning up and fixing what we sent to FEMA back in May. So I just need to start gathering all of the information, man hours, materials from Mike of what he has done to fix what's there. And then when it comes to the reporting portion to FEMA, I'll get that started for reimbursement. There's a lot of forms. It probably will take me a little bit.
I saw those and was a little confounded as to how many different ways you can say the same thing.
Yeah, I guess I'd rather use their forms than try my own though too. I mean, when I spoke to them in May, that gentleman said that if you don't have it designated how many hours or how much it costs per hour to use our skid steer is, we will be able to use
FEMA rate.
FEMA's rate. So they're taking a lot of the guesswork out of it for me. I just need to figure out how many hours, how many man hours, how much materials it took to do this, this, and this, and then report that back to them on their forms.
And they want it down to the latitude, longitude.
So
It'll be hard to hear.
all those spots have already been designated,
In the county,
I mean, for our city.
yes. That's what I reported. What I reported
Our road.
is included
never
into.
been- I didn't see any pictures of the road I live on. It's all washed out. From the rain.
Well, I don't know if I can circle back. I mean,
I don't know if Mike's been up, not looking at it.
yeah, I think the problem, Don, is that we had a very short time frame that Mike and I could circle around and see what damage was there. And we sat down for like an hour and a half and brainstormed everything, because at that point, we didn't even know if FEMA was going to say yes. So we did the best we could with the knowledge that Mike knew that was bad. We might be able to combine your road, your Oscar with the other Oscar. Okay,
Oh, I'm on Carl.
Carl, we'll figure, hopefully we'll figure something out, but I mean, I've had to submit to them what we knew. And we'll do what we can. I mean, it's funded, so that's a good thing. Yeah, it's money we don't have to spend on something else. Let's see, moving forward. The RDO Truck Center did get their check for the chassis purchase, so that's in the process. Mike told me that he's still on the list for well 8 and 5 repairs. And then that brings me down to M, which is the personnel committee report. Glad Don's here, so I'm not to be the only one talking about this. So we met for about 2 hours on the 19th and hashed out everything we could on the liquor store payroll budget. That was our biggest conversation. We talked about hours spent. We talked about payroll spent. We talked about all 3 departments in detail as to how it's scheduled and where we can cut and how it's going to affect the business. We talked about the costs for full-time employees, and not getting into names and dollar amounts is what I'm trying to do without, protecting everybody. So Shonda came to us with a very decent plan to start with, I thought. She cut almost 50 hours a week by moving some shifts around and cutting overlap. She started that almost immediately after we met and started it for the whole month of August, had a meeting with her staff and her heads was included. And she's pretty confident that that will make a significant impact. The committee is going to revisit this the second week in September, right after August, to see how big of an impact it is making. Because the committee understands how big of a contribution this is to the city, having that much payroll overspent. My calculations, based on what Shonda and I had budgeted for total hours spent for the year through payroll 14, which takes us pretty much through June, is like 1,100 hours overspent year to date. And that's not including the vacation time that Shonda and Melissa took up till now, because we had to still staff the department when we were gone, which is normal. We took 5 employees and estimated 2,080 hours. And then we added in the additional part-timers that we needed, but that does not, we're still way overspent in the amount of hours. Shonda contributes that to a lot of training, and a lot of new people, and trying to provide the best experience to the customer possible and making sure that things come out good. And I don't think she did it without any downside to the department, but she's pretty adamant about wanting to keep all 5 full-time employees till the first year is done. We don't know if we made a mistake or not. It's all going to pan out, and we're going to have to see what comes out. So that's what we're reporting at this point. Questions?
Until we see the recording.
Yeah, the report that I provided to the committee, Lori, is,
on that.
oh, in September? I'm sorry, thank you, yes, what I did was everybody's hours times their rate and everything, and I don't want to provide that right now.
No,
How do you feel about it, Christina?
I'm up in the air on it. I mean, I see pros and cons to both thought process, but you know, I spent 19 years in retail too. And I know the very first thing that when you're overspent on anything and you're over budget, the first thing you cut is payroll. And like I told, and this is why Shonda said at the meeting, I told her, you're gonna have to cut the fat. You have, I mean, if somebody's not pulling their weight, efficiency is the first thing you need to attend to. You need the people that are gonna provide you the best service to your customer in the shortest amount of time, regardless of what they're being paid.
right.
You need to do twice the work in half the time. It's unfortunate.
And that's been the food and beverage industry
Forever, yeah, anything retail, it's very difficult to do, and even if you are the business owner, it's difficult to do. Because you still have to pay yourself.
I mean, it's essentially what we're doing here. Trying to play owner,
Absolutely,
and because it belongs to the city, it's every taxpayer in, you know,
right.
and that's what we're trying to look out for. But if this is the recommendation, then that's what we'll.
Well, we're not taking it very, very easily either. That's why we already scheduled a meeting for September.
It's important that we
Stay on it.
stay on this one. This one can't slip.
And the problem is that the department is entering in their busiest time of the year.
I know.
You know, we have two very big festivals coming up. Wood Carvers is this weekend. Backwoods Bash is August 20th. It requires a ton of staff to pull off Backwoods Bash because we're not only staffing the building, we're staffing the park too. And that's hard, but we do a lot of business. So we'll have to see.
Don't they do outside as well to increase the amount of people that you're serving?
Yeah, plus they have a band, so.
Right.
Yeah,
So there's,
yeah.
you would normally increase staff that time anyway.
Yes. It's pretty much the Black Friday of the liquor store.
Would you like to tell
Everybody's
us all about it?
all hands on deck. Yeah.
Nope.
I'm taking the 50-minute on this one.
That is a bad.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, it's not fun, you know, but it's crazy town, you know, you just.
It's a good weekend. It's
Like I
busy,
said,
but
It's like Black Friday. If you've ever worked retail, you just know you're never gonna get a break. You're not gonna be able to go to the bathroom and you just, you know, scream and holler when you're done.
a little bit of crying involved.
Instead of crying, you know. That's all I have for old business next, unless I've missed something.
I'm ready to move on to new business.
Great.
Because this was the one that I was kind of
Okay, so.
concerned about.
Yeah, so I'm still kind of in the infancy stage of looking at this, the impact of the new cannabis legislation. My first focus, of course, is for the city and a liability standpoint. So Shonda brought this from MMBA for me to review. I thought it was a good summary of what got approved and how it could affect a municipality. My biggest concern to us is our drug and alcohol policy that we support for our employees. I think this is the first step for me on a policy making, is to make sure that we're following suit with what is approved state and that we're testing and supporting for the right statutes. So I'm currently working on revising our drug and alcohol testing policy and adding on to a drug-free workplace policy with this too, based on the statutes. Do I need to go through this?
No, I've read it unless
I read it.
somebody else wants to gone through. I was actually more concerned with the policy itself.
So what I did with the policy was I pulled the League of Minnesota Cities model policy off of their website, and I used the language in several aspects of their model policy and amended or added language to ours. The first one, obviously, that I know was changed would have been some of the definitions, especially as it pertains to what a drug is. So that's on page 2 of the draft. The controlled substance ends up being in there. So I changed all of the definitions. And those are all updated. On page 3, I changed the language of what under the influence has based on what we had originally done.
Correct.
And then at the bottom of page 3, that entire section that says person subject to testing and circumstances under which testing may be required has been added.
No,
I'm still gonna send this to the attorney to review because I'm not done with it yet.
okay. But I was just kind of wondering about this. Employees reported by a department head, supervisor, coworker to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol while involved in work-related activities. Such report can be made to the city council. Is that something we really want on it?
Tell me what page you're on. Please,
I think it's still page.
thank you.
Policy statement. Types of testing.
Underneath types of testing.
Okay.
Yeah. 2A,
So 2A is existing language.
correct. Is that? We do. I guess, let's say for argument's sake, we have 2 employees that are at work, and all of a sudden one of them comes to the council meeting and says, hey, guess what so-and-so's doing on his lunch break? And we want that on public to report this to the city council is to
I
me,
will
that seems
review
a little trivial.
I will, yep, I will review that because for privacy standpoint, that may not be allowed anyway.
That's a,
Yep, when I originally got the first policy that we're revising right now, Max, it was a combination of a policy provided to us by Sanford because
Right.
from OCNET as well as the league. So let me just double check because the reason I don't have anything changed under a reasonable suspicion is because I took the model policy and our policy and I didn't see any language changes. So I probably just missed that section. So I'll read through it again.
the one that kind of jumped out.
Okay.
We don't really want that.
I suppose you guys have probably never seen the policy. It's in our personnel policy, but
Do we really?
board heads don't need to. They're not employees.
Do we want to add city council members to the drug testing?
Well, we can't technically. That's different.
I know.
We can't drug test you.
So if, I have a
Other
question.
boards have.
Yeah, no,
do.
no.
So if gummies with THC are legal to buy anywhere and legal to have, good.
Yep.
That's fine, but
Yep.
you can't be doing it at work.
No, you
So
can't.
So
So
how-
the premise of the policy still remains.
So how do you say if you think somebody is still has residual high from the night before, comes to work and then somebody requests a drug test out? So how does that work?
The behavior is what you're reporting. So the
Yeah.
behavior is gonna be what you're reporting. You see somebody who is sluggish, maybe dropping things.
Well, I read that.
And that's kind of, what you're reporting. You don't have to know what it could have been
Right.
alcohol, it could have been a prescription drug that they took
Correct.
too much of.
Correct.
So it's still the same reporting.
But the question of it is where do you?
Where you draw the line?
Where's the line? Because
Well-
people are private.
So you still have to understand that when we go through our screening for our employees, they actually read and sign the existing drug testing policy, the one I'm revising. So they already know that we have this policy in place and that we don't tolerate it. You can't come to work drunk, you can't drink on the job, you can't operate machinery under the influence. So that's always remained. The change now is the fact that there's something else considered legal and what you can get high on, right?
That's where I'm.
So
Right,
as long as you're under the influence,
correct.
it doesn't say of anything in particular.
Right, there are some people that, that are alcoholics that work great every day and you'd never know them. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't do their job. If they obviously are not doing their job the way they were hired to, we have a behavioral problem we have to address as personnel.
I was-
Yep,
And I didn't read this completely, but there's some prescription medications that you're not supposed to operate machinery on. And
Yeah.
you have to report that you're taking it.
yep,
And I don't know if this policy actually.
it does.
Actually does.
it does.
Yeah.
I didn't get through it, but
Mhm.
Well, there's a lot.
We've always had part of the policy that states, that when you're going in for your drug test, if you are on medications, you have to tell Ahmed what those are. So if it's something they test for or not, or could throw the test off, that they're aware of it. But that's why Ahmed is our collection, so it doesn't violate anything for HIPAA. Page 5, I added the right of refusal. That was something I had never seen before. The religious grounds is new.
Mhm.
And the cost of required testing, because some people, there's places that they have to pay for it. So I added that in there too. The testing procedures section is existing. I didn't change anything on that. All of that mirrored the league's policy, the rights of employees and job applicants. Now, this is our existing policy
On the procedures.
on the procedures. So I didn't alter any of this because our procedures could be different than other places. And that language was not in the league's model policy. Moving to page 7, the personnel action resulting from a positive test result, that too is existing language. I have not changed anything from there. What I did add on page 8 today is basically what provides the drug-free workplace section of the policy, prohibition against drugs and alcohol. It basically says, we don't want you to be in possession of when you're working, and what's expected of you and what could happen. I added all of that. And then the last page is existing language. So I'm not an expert on this, you guys. I've read a lot of the legislative stuff and the notes that Shonda provided from this one attorney, but I am not perfect and I don't want to make a mistake on this policy, so I am going to send it to the attorney just to give it a nod, because I don't want it to conflict with something else we already have.
right. And I guess maybe Don, this is what you're thinking, I don't know, but just because it's legal, it doesn't, alcohol is legal. So do we really need to spend a whole lot of time and change a lot of things because it's a legal source of stimulant or not stimulant, but a drug as an alcohol? I mean, it's just another drug, So I don't know.
I would just want to make sure that the definition of it
Yes, and if,
for sure is in a policy.
so that when they're testing for THC, is that a deal breaker for the city?
Yeah,
So they are gonna, legislators going back and looking at all this.
of course they are.
Of course, they screwed up big time.
Well, my understanding is what they thought they were approving was just the medicinal approval of it.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, so I mean, a law's a law.
Now we're talking about thinking about.
Doesn't make it
legalizing
right.
marijuana.
That's the
So,
thing.
So,
Anyway, We'll be looking for further updates. on this,
Okay.
Christina. This one's not just gonna be a one and done, I don't.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. That's why I always veer to the league for their model policies and try to echo that, because that's what a lot of small cities do, and it just helps. It just helps to make sure like CYA is there. Moving down to new business B, I'll be providing on the 8th an updated joint powers agreement between DPS, BCA, and the city of Blackduck. So this agreement is something that it's a 5-year agreement. In 2021, the BCA did send it to our previous chief of police. It did not come in front of the board, and BCA just recognized it and subsequently said that it's not updated. She's gonna send me an updated agreement with language that backs up any statutes that have changed since the last one was signed in 2016.
So it would have been last year.
That's correct.
Great.
That's correct.
That's what I thought I read.
Yep.
Maybe I don't count.
Nope, you're right. And that's one of the reasons why the state called me, was because they're calling all of the agencies that haven't updated it. And for whatever reason, she understands that we changed hands and that we lost our chief. So hopefully I'll have that for you guys on the 8th to approve. And if there's any language difference, I'll point it out to you guys. It basically provides us access to the criminal justice system.
Right.
Department.
Is it a big deal that it's overdue? I mean, is there
She
something
didn't
in place?
seem too worried about it, Lori. We're already paying our quarterly subscription fee to the BCA to have that access for our department. So she knows we're current as it comes to paying for it. We're just not current in the language of the authorization. So she just needs a no on file. Any questions on that? And then the last thing I did was, I have started working on the 23 budget, a very small amount of time, but I did promise you at the last meeting that I would start looking for schedules. So my first available, I gotta get through the primary, obviously. And the next 2 weeks are gonna pretty much take over that. My first available date to start the meetings would be August 11th, which is a Thursday. And I'm pushing it at 3 o'clock. So Nick, you think that's gonna work for you? You're still at work, aren't you? You just
Could it be earlier?
Could it be earlier? It could, like an hour, like 2.
Well, I'd have to take off from school and I work at Ace on Thursday.
Okay,
So I come back here for the meeting and go back to work.
so tell me what you think will work better.
2 would work.
2 would work better. I haven't told Mike, so. If 2 works better for you, I'm gonna change it now. Okay,
Mike's in town here.
yeah, and I just put every other Thursday at 2 o'clock until we're done. I think I made like 4 or 5 meetings. It'll take us to like 3rd week in September. Hopefully we'll be done. Is it just the 3 of us? It is. Okay, because we don't have a chief. So Rob, I did text Rob. He does want to be part of the police budget review, at least to know what's going into it. I'm not going to expect him to come to those budget meetings, but I will work with him first, because last year I basically did it. So my goal is to meet with Mike and meet with Brian, fire chief, before the 11th, to have a nuts and bolts to at least discuss and to have wages sort of reviewed. I haven't even have a union meeting scheduled yet with 49ers. So for what it's worth, I'm fully behind. But I did get some insight to the LDA though. It's going up by like $9 grand. So that'll be nice. That'll help offset some other stuff. I have a couple other things on new business that I did not get onto the agenda, Max. The first thing I just wanted to let you guys know, as it pertains to the election, healthcare facility voting. I will be going tomorrow night to the county to do head judge training and facility voting training tomorrow night. And my plan is to do HCF on August 2nd, a week from tomorrow. What they are doing this year that they haven't done in previous years is they have actually sent an invite to Serenity and to the other location. I can't remember the name. By Nord, is that Nord that wants that? Either way. Normally, I've only been to Good Samaritan.
Right.
And normally, the county requires those residents to register as absentee voters. So that they'll provide them an absentee ballot. And I'll have those the day I go. What's different this time from the 18 election, not the 20 election, is that I also need to provide any other resident that is in the facility the opportunity to register as a voter that day and vote. So I have to bring blank ones too, and I never had to do that. Where, you know, I'd have maybe about a dozen residents to help get their votes done, and then I'd be done. And now I don't know how much time it's going to take. So Paige is going to assist me because I need 2 election judges in order to provide it, and we'll probably end up closing City Hall part of that day in order to get it done. I just don't have it on the 2nd. I just don't have any other time prior to the primary that I can commit, you know, a day here or a day there, or 2 hours here or 2 hours there. It has to really be done all on the same day. It's the best way I can really provide all the facilities to do it. What you might not remember was during the 20 election, because of COVID, the healthcare providers, the people that ran the facilities, they could act as their election judge and help their residents vote last time. And now we're back to where we were on the 18 election, where I actually have to physically go there. So
They don't, is that because they're absentee voting? Is
yeah,
there a reason why they don't come and vote during regular?
because most of them can't get out of the facility.
Okay.
The only facility we have that actually has like transportation is the Good Samaritan. And the only time they ever used it was the 16 election.
If you're adding it to foster care.
Yeah,
Right.
yes, I am. I don't think the county actually sends all of the notifications out to the healthcare facilities and gives them the opportunity to send it to residents. If they don't sign up or they forget it altogether and the general election comes by or the primary comes by and they have residents that want to vote, then that facility has to get their voter here.
Yeah.
1 year, Good Sam was overlooked for some reason, and they had several people that wanted to vote. So they bussed them over here and we did curbside voting for all of those residents. There was 8 of them in the bus. And that requires 2 election judges too. Because you need equal representation for the 2 major parties in order for it to be fair. A lot of the times what will end up happening is we'll go into one of the rooms of the facility. They'll bring the residents that are absentee ballot recipients there. I'll provide them their ballots. Some of them need help either by marking or reading. And once they're all done, then it needs a second signature. They all have to be witnessed now because COVID is done. And then I have to bring those back to the county. It's a process.
It's definitely a process.
It's a process. Paige and our previous council member, Bobby Joe Kiewicz, and myself all did the regular election judge training last Thursday. The other 2 people will be doing it online. I was really happy with the way Jody Treat provided the training this year, besides the typical training of what to expect and what a judge does. What Jody provided to all the judges this time was kind of a logistical update of what the county does from the time that they get trained and getting everything, our ballots all ready to the time that the election happens. So you could really get a good idea of the accountability that the county has to go through to have a fair and impartial election in our state and our county. And it was very knowledgeable to my standpoint, because I have a lot of people that question it. You know, the 20 election was volatile. And even the county, even our own county got questioned if they were providing a fair and impartial election to the voters. So for her to provide that information to us as election judges was valuable in my view, because I know the process, but you might not, right? And for me to say, there's no way to screw this up, there's no way for me to give you five ballots. You're only gonna say, yeah, well, whatever, Christina. I have a husband that's exactly like that, right? Unfortunately, but I know how, I mean, they give you 100 ballots and you bring them back 100 ballots, whether they're voted, spoiled, or not voted on. There's no way to add anything more to the bag, but skeptics a mess, at least I have a good understanding, so that was my additional.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I have a tax settlement update for you guys. When I first provided this to you guys to the consent agenda in July, it didn't occur to me that we were missing the HRA levy until I started budgeting and realized that a bunch of money went into Fund 311, which is for industrial lane loan. And that thing sunsetted in February. And I was like, why do we have $3,000 in here? Guess what I'm missing? So I called the county. They went through a brand new process. They reused a category number in my report that I get from them that was for the industrial lane loan for the Blackduck HRA. So in blue over here, you'll see the total that the first half property taxes went into our HRA fund. And I believe it was like $6,000 some that we were able to levy for. So that dollar amount got moved into that HRA fund after I fixed this. So instead of only $5,000 in that fund, we now have a little over $8,000.
So industrial lane, that, when you guys put that road in, that sunsetted the loan for that?
That's correct. Yeah, the last payment was February of this month. Let's see. I was instructed to make sure I get a photo of everybody tonight before we leave. Don't scoot out. And a group photo for the website. And then your August meeting, you're gonna have some guests.
Yes.
Max knows what's going on. You're going to see Mayor Prince from Bemidji. You're gonna see Dave Hengel from Greater Bemidji. You're gonna see probably Aaron Ectronaut from Beltrami Electric, representatives from Sanford, and representatives from Albany Communications, all being attending on behalf of Kevin Erpelding's request. Kevin sits on Greater Bemidji's board. And for a while now, he's been trying to get Greater Bemidji to think about what Greater Bemidji represents. And we had some board members and some BDC members and myself meet 2 Wednesdays ago at the golf course and try to compile some ideas as to what Blackduck needs and how Greater Bemidji can help. And when that meeting was done, Dave Hengel went back to his full board and said, we should be thinking this way. And arms raised and everybody said, I want to be part of this initiative. So this can mean a number of things for us. You know, where everybody thought there was a line that was drawn in Beltrami County, we can't go further north. They're really starting to think about this entire county and what Greater Bemidji can provide. And they would like to meet everybody on the board and let them know that they're aware that
Their importance as a regional hub.
That we contribute a lot to the whole area of Bemidji.
George Prince says he's gonna try to get up here. I talked to him anytime. And he goes, we got so much going on, but I want to get up there.
He called me just last week.
Does he need directions?
No, I've seen him at two LMC conventions. And it was really interesting. I talked to him both times and everything. He goes, I'm just trying to get up to Blackduck. Just haven't had time, and I'm gonna get there.
That's our August meeting.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I told them I would give them an agenda line and whatever time they want, so. I don't know what that's gonna look like. I don't know how much time it's gonna take up, but I think they definitely understand that we're trying to do something really important in our town or our area. And that it does more than just, our school board area. It echoes north and it echoes south. It even goes to Itasca.
Yeah.
So close.
We're doing a lot of stuff. I mean, when you think about all the things that have come up in just the last few years,
Yeah.
there's a lot.
I'm talking.
I mean, thank you.
Any questions, concerns, issues, other?
I look forward to seeing everyone at the Woodcarvers Festival. Yeah.
This Saturday.
We should bring our wallets and buy books.
You should bring your wallets and buy all kinds of carvings, and the library's gonna have their book sale. If anybody's feeling like moving a bunch of books Friday before AM,
Yeah.
please. Yeah, you can tell you're
Yeah.
just,
I'll be there.
there you go on that one.
Oh, look.
What else is going on? Yeah,
The next grill and chill is this
This
Friday.
This Friday.
The ladies are scramble is Thursday night.
If you haven't made it to a grill and chill yet,
You guys got anything down there going on this week? You have music for Saturday night?
Not that I have been made aware of, no,
That's just bash.
just the bash.
Campground is super busy.
we got golf scrambles coming next month.
Yep, the chamber is got a golf scramble scheduled in September.
Drake scramble in August.
Drake scrambles in August. It's just, everything's vibrating in town.
Yep.
The way we wanted it.
It's been good. It's been good to see the few different, some traffic that's different
Yeah.
than usual.
Before you know it, school's gonna be back in. It's not gonna take much, I know.
Grocery store is,
Yeah,
seems to be making a very
positive
positive
change.
change, very, having a good turn.
Yep.
It's August 1st, right?
Correct.
It is, they have their customer appreciation day this Wednesday. It was in the American. I encourage everybody to
Ice
stop
cream
down.
and- Ice cream and cake on it, no hot dog.
Oh,
We have
Cake and hot dog.
does the fire department have anybody retiring?
not that I'm aware of.
I heard a rumor.
If it's happening, it's gonna be soon.
Okay.
It might be to the end of the third quarter though. I think, are you talking about Mr. Anderson?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. I knew he was slated for this year. I just don't know when it actually is gonna happen.
Want to make sure that you recognize. Basically
Yeah.
my thought.
Yeah, it's very good. Hopefully, well, fire relief meets tomorrow night, so maybe after that.
Okay. That's that,
What about, do you want, Don, did you talk about LMC at all? You were here at the regular council meeting.
No, I haven't been here for.
did you want to tell us about your trip?
Oh, I actually enjoyed myself over there. I went to a few different, well, every day I went to seminars and I pulled a lot out of why the ones I picked, I wanted to go to. I already did that before we left. I left. I learned a lot about the speaking and how to go about getting things you really want. That's the one thing I would. You know, if you know, and then I talked to a lot of exhibitors, and I talked to a lot of different contractors out there that I really got a lot of information at home. I brought it down again. On different contractors that would actually come and help our little city government. You know, like I was kind of telling about our sewer systems are shot and everything, this and that, all this stuff. And I said, well, our city manager or city public works director, he has, you know, people doing some of this stuff, but no, there's no money for all this. There's money out there for this. There's a lot of money out there that these different companies could help get us back on track. And without the knowledge of talking to all these people, no, how the community would have known about this. You know, so I have lots of notes, lots of different pamphlets from all these different companies. I did go to the one we went for
The PTSD.
That was very interesting.
Yeah.
That was very knowledgeable. I mean, I was right at the back door. It was so packed to get in that place, but it was very interesting. And you know, to see our new president get elected from committee for the, that was interesting.
Ron,
Yeah,
Yeah. yeah, with all the presidents, yeah.
yeah. So I didn't miss a catch. I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that the city paid for me to go. It was, and I hope I can go to some more.
Yeah, they're actually gonna hold next year's at in Duluth.
Same place.
Yep, same place, which is a great opportunity for the northern half of the state, because Duluth can host a lot of people. I actually bridged a gap with the Midgie. I've always been Nate Matthews and I have always had a decent working relationship. We just, our roles vary so much because that city's so much larger. And I dabble in pretty much everything, just a little bit, where he dabbles in less things a lot. But he is organizing an administrative meeting of Blackduck, Bemidji, Walker, Park Rapids, Nevis, and Nisswa the end of August in Walker, just to collaborate. So I'm gonna head down to Walker and see. I think I might be one of the smallest towns, but they understand that corridor is really important for the people that visit for that grow our cities. So
It's probably gonna rain.
green
Well,
season.
every time I go to Walker, it seems like it rains. I'm just, every time.
Are you going?
Way, weren't
Do we
you
have
on that
anything else
wagon
tonight,
last year?
guys? Motion to adjourn? All those in favor? Aye. We stand adjourned.
I haven't even drunk for a long time.
Sorry, Lori.
Sorry,
Be the
Lori.
first thing I knew. I know you're ready.
Forgotten about it already.